Look at his hands. Calloused, thick, worn down to something almost geological. Layers of effort compressed into the skin of a man who built his entire identity on the act of working. He wakes before dawn. He stays past dark. His badge swipes in and out of that building more times per week than he sees his own reflection in a mirror he actually stops to look at. 60 hours, 70, sometimes 80. He brags about it. Actually brags. I haven't had a weekend since March. He says it like a combat veteran recounting a tour. He wears exhaustion as decoration. Now look at the other man. He arrives at 11. He leaves at 4. He doesn't apologize for it. His phone is off on Sundays. He reads books that have nothing to do with productivity. He takes long walks. His hands are soft. He doesn't own a single motivational poster. His bank account is obscene. Society has a verdict on both of them. The first man? Hero. Dedicated. A real one. The second? Probably inherited something. Lucky. Doesn't pull his weight. Must be cheating somehow. Machiavelli would look at that verdict and call it exactly what it is. The most elegant mass delusion in the history of organized society. The first man is not a hero. He is a resource being extracted at maximum efficiency. The second man did not get lucky. He simply refused to be harvested. The story you were told about hard work, the one that starts in kindergarten and gets reinforced by every graduation speech, every LinkedIn influencer, every motivational video you've ever half-watched at midnight, is not wisdom. It is architecture. It was designed. Not by malice, maybe, but by a system that requires fuel, and you are the fuel. And the most reliable way to ensure continuous supply is to make you believe that burning yourself alive is virtue. This is the truth they need you too tired to reach. Stop for a second. Not to absorb the philosophy, to do the math. Think about your last 7 days. Count the hours you gave to someone else's agenda. Now count the hours that were genuinely yours, organized around something that actually matters to you. That gap between the two numbers is not a scheduling problem. It is a power problem. Keep that number somewhere you can see it while we continue. Let's talk about what exhaustion actually does to a man. Not the surface level. Not, you feel tired and need coffee. The structural effect. The neurological consequence of chronic depletion that nobody in the productivity space will ever discuss because their entire business model depends on you staying in the cycle. A man who is exhausted cannot strategize. His prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, consequence evaluation, and the capacity to question authority, runs on glucose and sleep. Deplete those consistently enough, and you get a man who is functionally incapable of asking why. He can execute tasks. He is excellent at tasks. He will complete tasks brilliantly, right up until the moment he dies with nothing to show for it except the tasks. This is not an accident. A man who comes home with nothing left in the tank does not sit at his kitchen table and think about asymmetric power structures. He doesn't analyze who actually benefits from his labor. He doesn't read Machiavelli or study leverage or question whether the path he's on leads anywhere worth going. He opens his phone. He watches something numbing and warm and completely designed to fill the void without ever addressing the cause of the void. He sleeps poorly. He wakes anxious. He performs the commute again. He is grateful just to have the job. He is grateful just to be functional. Grateful for his own depletion. That word, grateful, that's the tell. That's how you know the architecture is working. When the man in the machine thanks the machine for running him. The hustle gospel didn't appear from nowhere. It was synthesized from pieces of Protestant work ethic, Cold War productivity mythology, and Silicon Valley performance theater, and compressed into a single, perfectly weaponized message. Your worth is your output. Your character is your work rate. Your suffering is your resume. The man who doesn't grind doesn't deserve. Rest is weakness. Sleep is for the mediocre. 8 hours? That's something losers tell themselves. And here's where it gets truly insidious. The men most thoroughly consumed by this gospel are often the most genuinely talented. The work ethic is real. The discipline is real. The sacrifice is real. None of that is fiction. What's fiction is the premise. The idea that maximum effort automatically converts to maximum reward. It doesn't. It never did. Effort without leverage is a horse on a treadmill. It moves. It sweats. It is visibly working. It goes nowhere. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote for princes. But the psychology he charted belongs to anyone willing to read power honestly. without the softening filter of how things should work. In The Prince, Machiavelli makes a distinction that the entire self-help industry has worked very hard to obscure. He separates the man who wins through sheer force, virtue deployed as raw, unmediated power, from the man who wins through position, through timing, through the arrangement of conditions, so that effort, when applied, achieves disproportionate results. He respected both, but he was never confused about which one the powerful actually use. He called it the difference between the lion and the fox. The lion is magnificent, genuinely magnificent. He is strong, fearless, built for confrontation. He charges. He breaks. He exhausts himself fighting threats head-on because that is what lions do, and there is honor in it, and everyone respects the lion. Everyone talks about the lion's dedication. Nobody talks about who set the trap the lion walked into. That was the fox. The fox never fights fair. The fox doesn't respect the nobility of a fair contest. The fox reads the landscape, identifies the leverage points, and arranges for the lion to exhaust himself against a wall, while the fox collects the outcomes. The fox's effort is not visible. It doesn't look like work. It looks like strategic laziness to anyone watching from the outside. The market does not reward effort. Read that again slowly. The market does not reward effort. It rewards position. It rewards timing. It rewards leverage, the ability to make 1 unit of input produce 10 units of output through the right arrangement of conditions. The man who understands this works differently than the man who doesn't. Same hours available, same days in the week, but one is multiplying and one is simply burning. Machiavelli watched rulers destroy themselves through force when cunning would have cost them nothing. He watched competent men surrender their autonomy to employers, allies, patrons, trading their sovereignty for the comfort of belonging to something larger, something that felt stable, felt secure. He noted with characteristic coldness that those employers, those patrons, those institutions would replace any individual the moment replacement was cheaper. There was no loyalty returning the loyalty given. There never was. The company will send a very sincere email when they let you go. HR will handle the paperwork. Someone will eat cake at your farewell. They will post the job listing before you've cleared your desk. Your loyalty to the institution is not shared. It is exploited. This is not cynicism. It is the documented behavior of every large organizational structure in human history, and Machiavelli identified the pattern 500 years ago, and it has not changed, and it will not change, because the architecture requires it to stay exactly as it is. So what does the man who woke up actually do? What is the fox's life? He stops counting hours and starts counting leverage points. He asks a different set of questions. Not, how much did I work today? But what did I create today that exists independently of my time? Not, did I seem busy? But did I move the needle on something that compounds? He ruthlessly distinguishes between motion and progress, between the appearance of productivity and the fact of it. He guards his attention the way a general guards territory, because his attention is the only resource he has that cannot be replaced, replenished, or outsourced. Money can be recovered. Reputation can be rebuilt. Time is gone the moment it passes. Attention is the conversion engine that turns time into either leverage or exhaust fumes, and he knows which one the system prefers he produce. He doesn't participate in the office Olympics of stress performance. He doesn't boast about how slammed he is. He doesn't compete for the title of most indispensable. Indispensable employees get promoted exactly enough to keep them from leaving, and exploited exactly as much as their desperation allows. The fox knows this. He makes himself valuable but not entrapped. He contributes strategically, then withdraws strategically. He builds things that earn while he's not working. Not because he is lazy. This requires understanding a crucial difference, but because passive leverage is the only mechanism that genuinely breaks the time for money equation that the system depends on him never breaking. Every hour he spends on structure is an hour multiplied forward. Every hour the lion spends on execution is an hour that ends when the hour ends. He asks permission from nobody. This one matters more than it sounds. The dependent man lives in a permanent state of pre-approval, checking faces, reading rooms, calibrating his moves against the anticipated reaction of his superiors, his peers, his social circle. Every decision filtered through. Will they approve of this? That filtering is expensive. It introduces delay, distortion, compromise. The fox filters only through, Does this serve my strategic position? The answers differ substantially, and over years, they produce completely different lives. Here is the part that will make some of you uncomfortable. The system is not populated by villains, that's the fantasy. The idea of shadowy men in rooms designing your oppression with mustache-twirling precision. Reality is less dramatic and more disturbing. The system works because it is composed of millions of people who were told the same story you were told, who believed it, who built their identity around it, and who now have a profound, unconscious investment in the story remaining true. Your manager who expects 60 hours wasn't corrupted. He gave 60 hours once, it worked once. He got promoted once. He concluded that the equation is valid, and now he needs the people below him to validate his equation by replicating his sacrifice. He is not your enemy. He is evidence of what you'll become if you stay in the current long enough. The most exhausted people in any company are invariably the most zealously committed to the mythology of exhaustion as proof of worth. They are the ones who send emails at midnight. Not because the email requires midnight, but because midnight emails are a ritual assertion that I am the sacrifice, and the sacrifice is what matters. They are performing their own crucifixion and expecting applause. Machiavelli pitied no one more than the man who engineered his own subjugation and named it virtue. You are not your job title. You are not your workload. You are not the pain you have endured in service of something that can legally terminate you with 2 weeks' notice and a standard severance package. That pain is not your identity. It is the cost of a belief system that was handed to you before you had the capacity to interrogate it. You are allowed to interrogate it now. There's something else Machiavelli identified that the productivity culture will never touch, because touching it would detonate the entire premise. He observed that the rulers who lasted, not the ones who burned brightly and collapsed, but the ones who shaped eras, were the ones who understood the difference between being visibly powerful and being actually powerful. The visible man is constantly performing his relevance. He is busy in public, productive in front of witnesses, demonstrates his value through the language of effort. He needs the audience to validate the performance, because without the audience, the performance has no meaning. And without meaning, the exhaustion has no justification. The actually powerful man requires no witness. His moves happen in the margins of what others observe. His real decisions are made quietly, in the spaces between the visible activity. He is not performing for anyone. He has no need for the audience's consensus on his value, because his value does not originate in their perception of it. This distinction matters practically. The man who is visibly working hard is, at a psychological level, dependent on that visibility being recognized and rewarded. He is in an implicit contract with the system. I give maximum visible effort, you give maximum visible reward. When the reward doesn't come, when the promotion goes to someone who worked less visibly but positioned more cleverly, the visibly hard-working man doesn't revise his strategy. He works harder. He makes himself more visible. He doubles the bet on a game he is losing, because revising the strategy would require admitting the premise was wrong, and the premise is the foundation of his identity. This is not weakness. It is the completely predictable outcome of a belief system installed in childhood and reinforced by every social institution he has ever passed through. The school gave him gold stars for effort. The early employers gave him praise for staying late. The culture gave him language for it. He's a grinder. She puts in the work. Real ones sacrifice. Every gold star was a brick in a wall he can no longer see around. The fox sees around the wall because the fox never built it. The fox started from a different question. Not how much can I endure, but what is the minimum elegant intervention required to produce the maximum outcome? That question sounds cold. It sounds like it lacks honor. To the lion, it sounds like cheating. But the fox is not interested in the honor of suffering. He is interested in the outcome. And outcomes, unlike suffering, compound. Now let's talk about something more uncomfortable than the system itself. Your participation in it. Not your victimhood. Your participation. Because here is the mechanism that Machiavelli found most fascinating and most dangerous. The man who is exploited, and who knows he is exploited, and who continues anyway because the exploitation has become structurally necessary to his self-concept. The hustle is not just how he earns money. The hustle is how he earns himself. Without the hours, without the suffering, without the sacrifice narrative, he doesn't know who he is. The exhaustion is not a side effect. It is the product. He is manufacturing a version of himself that requires the grind to exist, and now the grind is non-negotiable because the identity is non-negotiable. This is the trap within the trap. You can show a man the cage. You can give him the map, the key, the philosophical argument, the historical evidence. And he will nod and agree and maybe even feel a crack of something opening. And then he will go back to work 80 hours next week, because the alternative is a temporary disintegration of his selfhood that feels more threatening than the exhaustion ever did. Machiavelli saw this in rulers who couldn't stop fighting, who couldn't transition from conquest to governance because conquest was their identity, and governance, that quiet, strategic, unglamorous work of maintenance, didn't produce the raw adrenaline of perpetual struggle. They kept picking fights they didn't need. They kept manufacturing urgency. They burned their own empires down because peace didn't feel like living. Your workload is your war. Your exhaustion is your proof. The midnight email is your battle scar. And the moment you stop, really stop, strategically stop, start doing less visible work and more invisible positioning, the silence will feel like failure before it feels like freedom. Push through the silence. The silence is where the strategy lives. The silence is where the fox operates. The silence is where the men who actually build legacies do their most consequential work, invisible and unbothered and completely incomprehensible to the lions who are still charging the wall. One more thing that gets deliberately lost in the noise. The glorification of overwork is not ideologically neutral. It serves a specific interest. Think about who benefits from a culture in which status is assigned to effort rather than outcome, in which the man who works 80 hours is celebrated over the man who produces the same result in 20. The company benefits. The institution benefits. The structure that requires continuous human input to function benefits enormously from a population that has moralized the input. When you make the sacrifice sacred, you remove it from negotiation. You cannot renegotiate a religion. You can only defect from it. Defection looks like the man who takes his Friday afternoon for a walk instead of a meeting nobody needed. The man who declines the project that would make him look busy, but serve nothing strategic. The man who says with complete calm, "I don't measure my contribution in hours," and means it and is backed by results and therefore cannot be argued with. Defection is not quitting. Defection is refusing to validate the premise while still operating within the structure where necessary. The fox doesn't burn the forest down. The fox simply doesn't live by the forest's rules. He moves through it on his own terms, uses what serves him, exits what doesn't, and maintains the emotional detachment required to see the terrain clearly. Machiavelli's prince did not rebel against the nature of power. He accepted the nature of power completely, acknowledged that the world operates on calculation, interest, and leverage, and then used that acceptance to operate more freely than the men around him who were still pretending otherwise. His freedom wasn't ideological. It was structural. It came from a precise understanding of how the game actually worked, stripped of the mythology that kept his contemporaries making predictable, exploitable moves. You have the same option. The mythology is visible now. The architecture is mapped. The question that Machiavelli would ask, the question he always asked, is simply this. Now that you see the trap, what are you going to do? There are men watching this right now who are going to finish this video, feel something shift, and then close their laptop and send the midnight email anyway. Not out of stupidity. They are not stupid. The system selected against stupidity. It needs intelligence in its machines, but out of inertia so deeply grooved that it operates below the level of conscious decision. They will choose the familiar weight over the unfamiliar lightness of a different way, and the system will receive them warmly, as it always does, and it will extract from them for another year, another decade, another career's worth of carefully rationed hope. Then there are the others, fewer. The ones for whom the crack that just happened is irreversible. The ones who can no longer unsee the frame around the picture. These men will not necessarily change everything tomorrow. Real structural change is rarely sudden. The fox is patient, measured, strategic, but they will begin asking different questions. They will start auditing where their time actually goes against what they actually want to build. They will start noticing the gap between effort spent and leverage gained, and that gap will become intolerable over time. And the intolerable thing eventually produces action. That is the seed. That is what Machiavelli actually offers. Not a blueprint, not a rule book, but a lens. A ruthlessly honest lens through which the real mechanics of power, effort, and reward become visible for the first time. And once the lens is in your eye, you cannot remove it. The world looks different when you see it clearly. Less comfortable, yes, but navigable. And navigable beats comfortable every single time when the stakes are your actual life, not abstractly, specifically. He no longer answers emails as they arrive. He batches them. He removed notifications from his phone in 2019 and hasn't put them back. His competitors are being interrupted 40 times a day. He is not. That uninterrupted attention compounds into output quality that is simply not achievable in a reactive mode, and his clients know it. And it is why they pay a premium for access to something they intuitively feel but can't articulate. He has 3 things he is working on at any given time, not 23. 3. 1 generates cash now. 1 builds leverage for later. 1 is purely intellectual, the kind of long-term investment in understanding that doesn't pay immediately, but eventually becomes the perspective gap between him and everyone who was too busy to read. He sleeps 8 hours without guilt. This is not a personality trait, it is a strategic position. The sleep-deprived man's cognitive function at hour 14 of a workday is not worth what he's charging for it. The rested man's 3 focused hours in the morning produce more of what actually matters than the exhausted man's 12 hours of performance. He does not confuse his calendar with his strategy. He can have a completely clear week and still be making the most consequential moves of the year through a single well-placed conversation, a position taken in advance of a trend, a relationship built with precision rather than volume. He does not apologize for any of this. This is the hardest part for men raised on the mythology of honorable suffering. Not apologizing, not qualifying, not prefacing every autonomous decision with, "I know this might seem like I'm not working hard enough," but the need to justify strategic elegance to people who are too depleted to recognize it is itself the residue of the old programming. The fox doesn't explain the trap he avoided. He simply isn't caught in it. Machiavelli ends in a roundabout way with a single devastatingly simple proposition. The purpose of power is sovereignty. Not wealth, not status, not the admiration of men who are still running on the same wheel. Sovereignty. The condition in which your time, your attention, your decisions, and your direction belong exclusively to you. The exhausted man has surrendered sovereignty. He made the trade, comfort, stability, a steady paycheck, the approval of the group, in exchange for his autonomy. And the tragedy isn't that he made the trade. The tragedy is that he made the trade without knowing he was trading, because no one told him sovereignty was the thing on the table. Nobody told you that the real prize wasn't the corner office. Nobody told you that the man who controls his own hours controls his own life, and the man who sells his hours controls nothing, regardless of how large the check is. Nobody told you because an informed man is a man who renegotiates, and the system cannot afford mass renegotiation. So the exhaustion continues. The badge keeps swiping. The midnight emails keep going out. And the most disturbing part, the part that would genuinely unsettle Machiavelli, is how many of those midnight emailers are proud of themselves for it. You watch this video. That means something. Either you're already out and you're refining the framework, or you're still in it and something just cracked. Either way, the crack is the beginning of the only renovation that matters. The exhaustion you have been calling dedication is not a badge. It is a receipt. A receipt for the hours you exchanged for a system that does not distinguish between the man who gave everything and the man who gave nothing. It terminates both the same way, on the same paperwork, with the same tone of professional regret. Comment below. I choose strategy over exhaustion, not as a slogan, because the man who writes that in public has just drawn a line between the version of himself that accepted the frame and the version that refuses it. The line is small. The direction it points is not. Subscribe. The next video is about the people closest to you, and why some of them are not in your corner in the way you think they are. Not enemies. Something more complicated than enemies. Carl Jung called it the social mirror. Understanding it will change who you let watch you work.